A house is a residence, a place to live for a few years or a lifetime, and over the years it becomes a home. Some houses are new, still waiting for their first people to move in, while others have seen generations of life. While people move into and out of houses, the houses themselves are always there, settled, stoic, unmoving, until they do move. This is the tale of a traveling house which went on an incredible journey decades ago. The year was 1980. Louis and Betty Golly were farmers from Tracy who traveled to Stockton occasionally.
We used to pass the house all the time. Chase Chevrolet had a garage, where you took to get serviced. And my husband was a Chevy person, so we'd go by this house whenever he went to the service. And I used to always say, why don't they take better care of that pretty Victorian house? We always kind of wanted a Victorian. We liked the period, we liked the years, and we were talking about even building one.
At the time, Betty thought nothing more about the house, but Louis had other plans when the house went up for sale at a public auction.
And all of a sudden, out of the back, he moved away from me. He didn't stay by me, because he was smart enough to know I'm not going to stand by her. And so anyhow, came up for the more bids, and Louis goes, 10,000. And right away I'm thinking, I could kill that guy. Why didn't he go to 9? Why go to 10? Well, he knew they couldn't go over 10. And if they went to 10, he'd have to go to 11. So he just went right to 10. That was the end of the bids, and we got the house for $10,000.
The Gollies had used Fisher Brothers house movers some years before to move bunkhouses to their farm.
Mrs. Fisher was there, and Louis had called her. And so anyhow, she says, well, Louis, if you get that house, how are you going to move it? He says, well, I'm thinking about floating it down the river. She says, I think we can, Louis.
Why not move by road? A road move was complicated and costly. Power and phone lines would need to be moved or taken down and put back up again. Police would be needed for traffic control.
If we float it down the river, we don't deal with anybody but ourselves.
While there were challenges to moving the house by land, there were unique challenges on the water.
Just down the river here, they run onto some wind, and the company was afraid it was drifting too much, and if they got close to the levee, there was a tree, it might damage it. And so they tied it up for the night, and they brought it in the morning, so it was a day and a half.
Bridges and other structures had to be maneuvered under and around.
Going underneath the freeway was one of the points. There was a place in the river, he said, that there was a couple of pillars, and they had to go between them on one of the bridges. And so that meant they had to kind of throttle up and get through, because they couldn't let it drift. If it hit one of those piers and broke it, we'd be in big trouble. He said there was a big rope, he describes it. And he said, all of a sudden they hit the throttle and it started to go, and the rope was getting smaller and smaller. He thought, oh my God, if the rope breaks, we're gone, but it didn't. And they got through under the bridge and got back in the waterway and drifted on away.
While Louis was worrying on the water, Betty just couldn't bear to watch any stage of the move.
I try to stay away when they're doing a lot of that stuff, because I didn't want to see if it got damaged. I didn't want to see it, And I mean, I trusted the Fishers, but, you're moving this, and you're moving it down the river, and you're moving it over the levee.
At Journey's End, the house had to be moved from the barge back onto land.
They have what we call berms. You go over the levee, and there's a flat spot. And they backed right up to it. It was almost equal. And they just pulled it right off of the tug onto the berm.
And then over the berm and to a yet-to-be-completed hole in the ground, destined to become the foundation.
Louis has to make the foundation to shape the house. If there's a bay, the foundation's a bay. So when it's set down, you have the bay in there just like you have up here. They get the foundation laid out and get it all poured and get it ready. And then they come down and they set the house down on the foundation.
Once the house was settled onto its new home, the couple finished it, from new plumbing and electrical, right down to Betty staining all of the old wood trim inside. In a year and a half it was done. But at some point before the move, 2 items went missing, and Betty had a suspect.
And I said, now, Don, I know, I'll bet you there was a stained glass window up there. He just smiled, and I says, and the fireplace had to have a mantel. Yeah, okay, Betty. Well, the day we won the bid, lo and behold, his secretary came and said, don't leave. Be sure to wait a while. Don's got something for you. And he had these 2 crates. And lo and behold, there was a stained glass window, and there was a mantel.
The stained glass window was reinstalled in its original position, and the mantel now surrounds the fireplace in the dining room. Louis passed away in 2010. His dream Queen Anne cottage lives on, with Betty and her memories.
And nothing's changed since we moved in. It's what it was then is what it is now.
Cindy Green for Soundings Journal.